A sharp scream shattered the early morning quiet. The raven ruffled its feathers and cocked its head. It peered at the large farmhouse through obsidian eyes. Moments later, the porch door cracked against the side of the house, and a small child stumbled into the open. The raven shifted from side to side and bobbed its head. Wind whipped the child's nightgown around her legs as she raced down the steps, tripping her at the bottom. She went down hard. She looked over her shoulder, and a dry sob racked her little frame as she shoved herself up to her hands and knees. Long tendrils of light brown hair tangled around her face and arms. A man, tall, covered in red splatters, burst through the open doorway, and the little girl scrambled to her feet with a cry of terror. She took off at a run into the large field behind the house, the man fast on her heels. The raven cawed and flapped its wings, the glossy black feathers shining in the breaking dawn. The child screamed again as her pursuer caught her hair, wrapping it in his beefy fist and yanking her back. Her arms flailed, and she struggled to free herself. Again the raven cawed. It stretched and flapped, its talons digging into the soft wood of the fence as though to keep itself rooted to the spot despite the powerful beat of its wings. The little girl kicked and screeched. Small fingers clawed, and the man howled in pain as she sunk her teeth into the hand he'd tried to silence her with. He cursed and threw her small body away from him. Like a rag doll, she flew through the air and landed hard against the ground. Air left her lungs on a whoosh, and blood pooled from the back of her head. She did not move. The man stepped toward her limp body, and the raven screeched as it took flight. It swooped at the man, pecking his arm, his shoulder, his head. The man backhanded the bird, and it fell to the ground near the child with a dull thud, its neck twisted at a wrong angle. Blood flowed from the raven to mingle with the child's before both seeped into the dry, hungry earth like some kind of pagan offering. The man moved again, but another raven swooped from the sky. He batted at it, and another dove at him, and another, and another, and another. They landed on and around the small girl, cawing and flapping their sleek black wings. Still more came at him, with claws and beaks, until her attacker stumbled away, gashes peppering his face and arms. Through night and day for 2 days the ravens stayed, keeping vigil over their small charge. Late the second day, a car pulled up the drive. An older woman got out and started up the walkway. She gave an uneasy glance toward the ravens before scurrying up the steps and knocking on the partially open screen door. The birds flapped and cawed, and the woman knocked harder before entering the house. Her scream sent the large black birds into a flurry before they settled around their charge once more. Soon, other cars arrived, lights flashing in the waning daylight. A police dog bounded from one vehicle, racing toward the ravens, sending them high into the sky yet again. One of the officers yelled for help and ran to the still body lying in the field. Sleek black hair, as dark as a raven's wing, wrapped around her slender shoulders. The officer pressed 2 trembling fingers at the base of the child's throat and gave a prayer of thanks when her tiny frame shuddered and she drew in a deep breath. Her pulse beat strong and steady beneath his touch. He gathered the child into his arms and rushed her to the awaiting ambulance, where paramedics tended to wounds that turned out to be dried blood and nothing more. Not one scratch or scrape adorned her porcelain skin. Her mother hadn't been so lucky. The little girl was shielded from seeing the body bag being wheeled away on a gurney. Officers whispered about the horrors that must have gone on within the large farmhouse, the terror that child must have faced. The older woman had worked with the girl's mother. She offered to take the child for a few days until family could be located. Days turned into weeks. The child had no family, so she became a ward of the courts, and the fostering began. But no family lasted long. Not for the quiet, odd, little raven-haired child who'd witnessed her own mother's murder. It was the birds, though, that made it impossible for the child to ever be considered normal. Their ever-vigilant presence frightened people, made them whisper. They spoke of the pictures that had been found in her home that dreadful day she'd been rescued. The pictures of a smiling child with light brown hair and twinkling light brown eyes. The pictures that only resembled the little girl the officers had found unconscious in the field next to her home. At first, they'd thought her hair had been dyed that unnatural black, and that her obsidian eyes were contacts of some sort. It didn't take long to realize something more. Something unexplainable had happened to the little Crawford girl.